What does God look like? What do you see?
We're solar-powered biological AI.
Wait, what?
These ancient adversarial entities, I think it's the very same ones that rebelled against God and were cast out.
They were sent here to guide us in antiquity, and they took advantage of that and just masqueraded as gods. There we go. I'm muted. What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Gray Pill Podcast. I am your host, Jules, the Mississippi Mystic, the sound scientist, the Elohim etymologist. Joined tonight by a friend of mine, a fellow occult reject, Mr. Robby Marx, in the building. Robby, what is going on, man? It's good. It's good to finally have you here.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to come on. We've been talking about doing this for a minute, so it's good to connect and see where we end up heading off.
Absolutely, dude. And like I said, you are a fellow, I guess you could say, panelist on the Occult Rejects with me. We've done a few shows together. Most recently, Serpent and the Rainbow.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, definitely had Ani in the house with us. It was a banger. Yeah, guys. So here, Robby, I'm gonna pull up y'all go and follow Robby. Robby, tell people a little bit about yourself. It's your first time on Gray Pilled. So let people know kind of a little bit of what you do and where they can find you, man.
So for I don't know, the last 35 years, I have been a professional artist, and I've just been creating art. I do various concert festival posters. We were talking about, some different bands before we came on that you and I are both a fan of. And I've just been, being in a creative space, and I go out on the road. I don't know. Before my daughter was born, at one point, I was out on the road like 9 months out of the year, and I would come home for 3 months and basically just create. And then after I had my daughter, now I do, 3 or 4 months on the road, and then the rest of the year at home, kind of, nesting and just kind of in a creative space and making things and
being a hermit.
Yeah, being a hermit.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of research. While I'm creating and making the art, I variously will listen to different texts, different books, different, things. And I've been doing that for, again, 30 years, and been an avid reader since I was in my, late teens. And I love information, bringing the formation of the info together, and so
dude, I'm loving these shirts, man. These shirts on your site.
Yeah, I've done a variety of all over type t-shirts. I've designed hats, hoodies, various garments, and for about 7 years I had a screen press that I ran. And,
nice.
6 color. And I would just print, my own art.
Were you doing stuff for some other people too, or were you just?
Oh yeah, it was all for bands and
cool,
different events, and yeah, it's been quite the journey,
Absolutely, and so you're also the host of the Metta Mindcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
your
it's kind
show.
of a
What's
it's kind of a meta podcast. It's
ah
so it's basically all the various shows that I go on. I just line them up and throw them out on the feed. But there are mixed in shows that I will sit down and just, monologue, talk about a specific topic. And, if fans will correct me about certain things, and that's great. Information, it is fluid. It is, like I said, it's in formation. It's coming together. We're drawing all of these things, you're like in your own specialized field. I'm in my own specialized field. We have everybody that's going down all these different rabbit holes and bringing history really alive, and trying to understand as a whole, like, who we are as a culture and a people, and like, what is this thing, what is the they? Is there something out there trying to manipulate and control us? It's
right.
The most primitive state of man. What did Philip K. Dick say? Ultimate paranoia is ultimate information awareness. So it's like if you're, and some people are more so than others.
If you're aware, you're probably a schizo. So,
and on some level,
yeah,
I
man.
mean, we all have our own weird conceptualized ideas of what this, into this realm is, and I think it's great just to see all the different, information. But
as and if I interrupt you, interrupt me back. Feel free.
No, for sure.
I think Nick says it's kind of like you're making magic in a way. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And you're coming to these you're really drawing conclusions from a lot of research done on the occult and these esoteric topics over time, and now it's we're figuring more things out about it. And it's progression in these certain subjects, and I think that's something that we haven't seen in some time. You know what I mean? It's been
right
away from people, and like, yeah, you could. Is it planned? Like, did they trust all this information into the the mainstream at a certain time because it was supposed to happen?
It's interesting because you look back at the times when like literature came about, like when Gutenberg basically brought about the press and started printing Martin Luther's translation of the Latin, and Greek Bible. And basically, then you had the Jesuits rebel, and they had this program called Learning Against Learning. And so it's basically what modern intelligence would call flooding the zone, where you basically put out so much information, misinformation, disinformation, truth, lies, everything in between, so that the people are in such a fog of stuff that they can't necessarily determine.
They don't know which way's up or down.
Right. And I think, in the late 1800s, you had a massive publication of books. And then you look at the birth of the internet and how it was originally just like really wild, wild west. And, we were all in our chat rooms and trading Grateful Dead tapes and, talking about revolution and, and then just to see it all kind of be hammered down into these, socially acceptable social media groups where everyone gathers, that all seem to be, set up by Intel money,
Yeah, there's an echo chamber and you're placed in there.
Yeah.
And now it seems like there's these boundaries set up in these
freedom of what is it? Freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. So they box you in as far as who is allowed to. And I even have, what is it, on Facebook, I have just my Instagram to share straight to my Facebook. And it only the art and stuff that I post on Instagram goes there, and then I'll talk all my shit on Twitter. But on Facebook,
Instagram, dude, I'm gonna try to stream it to Instagram. tonight.
Well,
I need to remember that.
Instagram's a visual medium, and with the visual art, it just goes with it. But it's funny because on Facebook they tell me you've been posting quality content. We're gonna share your stuff with more people. So they're even telling you, straight up how they're doing it. And if it's acceptable, then it gets mass distribution. If it's not acceptable, then it gets shut down.
Yeah.
And
It-
it's the same thing with traditional gatekeepers in media publishing,
Mhm.
going all the way back to the invention of the radio wave.
Yeah. I was gonna say, by boxing in these ideas,
Mhm.
well, you can, I think it's harmful for someone's brain,
Yeah,
over
yeah.
time. That happens so much, and then you
Mhm.
start, somebody brings up something that's kind of not the norm, and you jump down their throat,
Because
because you're
it's outside of your
conditioned.
vernacular.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Rather than just realizing the multiplicity of reality is, so versatile and fractaline, and we're all but isn't that what traditional religious matter was for? Isn't that what traditional media was for? Even now, with Hillary Clinton talking about we're losing the information war, and Alex Jones, it is the info wars, and it's the whole idea of the fourth world wilderness as far as the mind. And if they can get enough people to all believe the same thing, then thereby that becomes the reality that we live within. So to be contrarian, and you have within the Native American, like the Nakota and the Dakota tribes, you have the Hyoka, which is the sacred clown, that he basically walks backwards to test the limits, to make sure everybody else really is doing what they believe is the right thing. So it is the job of some people in society to kind of push these boundaries in that's what mankind does. We got guys in squirrel suits flying off mountains, and if we can press it, as far as that's what humanity does, is we press the envelope, we press the
mhm.
limits, and that's how we grow and expand as I almost think of humanity as like a culture in a petri dish, being the planet Earth. And kind of, it's like, at what point do we, it's like the whole idea of the different levels of civilization, from, the earthbound to actually leaving and going into space. It's like, or is it the other way, where there's actually a firmament? And like the Russians, they tested cosmonauts going up, and once they got past a certain point of the Earth's magnetic field, when they brought them back, their minds were completely erased. They lost everything. So is the Earth almost like the magnetic memory bank for all of the brains to kind of function? And it's the same thing with the reproductive system. It's built for a gravitational state, in order for the women to have their cycle, and to actually so because it's all dependent around the time and the conceptual construct of the sun and the moon, and how things flow, and the 28-day cycle that's related to the divine feminine and giving birth, and the fertility of the earth itself. And it's all just so intricately interconnected.
Right. Yeah. Sun and the Moon, the first two mystery schools. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, man. No. So you had mentioned, I think, that there were a lot of books written in, you said, the late 1800s. Well, what was that about?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just when you look at publishing, I mean, it was probably the Industrial Revolution, also in regard to the number of people that had more access to, and the rise of capital. So you have, these different publishing houses setting up, a lot of times republishing, editions of various classics of literature, but as well obscure. And then you have some publishing houses that are just publishing esoterica and like magical or Masonic. You get, like, I have what is it, an 1886 Masonic encyclopedia, and you go, and what is it, I've got a set of Goethe that is from what is it, 1882. And you just go into these books, and the quality, the craftsmanship, they were hand making the paper, they're hand typesetting, they're building the books by hand as far as how they're binding them. It becomes an art form. And
Right.
so, and I just think maybe that was the peak of publishing and the artistic idea of creating a book.
Absolutely, man. And the people who were behind creating those books, because then, you have the 1900s rolls around, and I'm pretty sure Rockefeller, I don't know the name of the printing company, but I think he may have owned it.
Yeah.
The one that printed the first school books.
I'm sure there's some interrelationship, because they were the ones testing the Bell system. They were the ones testing, a lot of this. It was coming out of the Prussian school model that Dewey and Thomas Mann were bringing back, because they went and studied in the Prussian system. It was basically very strict, regimented, and it was designed for the children to go from school directly into the military. And early on we had ROTC, and the military was involved in the school. And then as liberalism has grown, that's kind of been exiled from the children's sight. And it's just interesting, the way, but all that stuff goes back. And then the Prussian system that they brought back and instilled as the American education system, they took the Skinner box and basically overlaid that over the top of it psychologically, to teach the children that there is a hierarchy of it's basically the idea of appeal to authority, because you have to always raise your hand if you want to speak. You have to raise your hand if you want to go to the bathroom. So it creates this hierarchy of psychological socio like status, that in society you should always, and like we saw in recent times, the idea of appeal to the experts, as far as, trust the experts. Like, are you a scientist? Or, it's rather than instinctual gut feeling, things that we've always run on. More people, it's a good thing now that more people are learning deeper aspects of the histories, because what do they say? If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat
it. Yeah, man. And when it's really about who's writing the history, you know what I mean?
Sure.
From that person's point of view, they're gonna, everything's gonna be in their favor, right?
Yeah. And you see that in the
religion with the same thing.
Oh yeah. Well, and all of those early religious texts are written by the winners, So,
right.
And how they've overcome,
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that you said that there was a line of esoteric and occult literature being put out as well as just regular books, but do you think that information was being like edited and
manipulated,
kind of, controlled? Yeah.
When you get into Madame Blavatsky and you start looking at her whole thing of trying to set up Krishnamurti, and just there's a lot of documented shenanigans of people dropping letters through cracks in the ceilings, and like, and different, just but nonetheless, and then you go back and you follow Blavatsky back, and she was in the Italian wars with Mazzini. She had a couple bullets that she took, and I think she was wrapped up in British intelligence, and basically a lot of that the stuff that she wrote in regard to the secret doctrine ended up being a lot of what the Germans used in regard to the Volk and restoring the ideas of the traditional society, and kind of hearkening back to these kind of ideas of the root races, coming through history. And so, yeah, it gets, interesting when systems are set up. It's the whole idea of the straw man. Like in the Druids, they had the Wicker Man. And they would fill it up. They would build it and fill it up with the criminals, and even now we see
their enemies.
Oh yeah. But even in modern times, we see this idea of the Burning Man. And it kind of plays into the idea of the Azazel goat, where you're kind of like
the scapegoat.
This is like the sin eater, where you're like taking all your troubles and woes and putting it on this effigy. And this is an ancient practice. This is
kind of like what some people do with the chicken.
The chicken.
Yeah.
And you kill the chicken for your sins. And
chicken.
but even going back to, when you look at the earliest priesthoods, when there was a sacrifice, the priest had to take part of eating part of the sacrifice. So it kind of is just this, and that's where you get into the idea of the sin eater, and basically, and Azazel, was there's one story where he went up and he was raised in heaven. And then there's another story where he kind of got banished to the desert, and they send the Azazel goat out with all the sins, and then he eats it,
Yeah. Okay. So Azazel, in my research, is very similar in the Sumerian mythologies to the entity known as Marduk.
Yep.
Would you agree that that's probably the same archetype or same figure?
And I've also heard it related to the it's a peacock rainbow angel. Yazidis.
Hold on. Oh my God, dude, I know who you were talking about. There's an Electric Wizard song named after this guy. I actually talked about this, breaking it down and talking about the Yazidi tribe worshiping this peacock god, thinking it's Inki. The sigil that they use is the same sigil that's used when you see like the same archetypes that align with Inki. Oh my God.
Well,
now I have to look it up.
So that peacock angel, which a lot of people relate to Lucifer, is in such repentance according to the
Malek.
Say it again.
Tawusi Malek.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to be the first one back into the gates, and then within the Hebrew mythology, you have the story of Lucifer, falling from the heavens because he didn't want to worship, like not worship, but bow down to the newly created humankind. You have this in the Hindu texts where you have these entities that are coming and talking to a human on the earth. And he's basically saying, we were made before you, we will not bow down to you. But they say that the Brahmins, take them as their seniors because they are older and more well known. And then you have, what is it in the Islamic texts? They talk about Idris, which is equivalent to the shaitan or the fallen one, that basically they made a, like almost a golem of Adam out of clay, and he was like, I'm not going to bow down and supplicate to that. He's like, you made me of fire and light in the heavens, and you're making this thing of clay and mud of the earth. And that Idris, he kicks the man sculpture, and it makes like this resounding thud. And that was when he basically was determined to overtake and cause us to be degraded in our earthly form. So every culture has this story of this, but that particular Marduk in Babylon, and early Cana, he basically took on all of the aspects of Marduk. And so that was his like secret occulted personification within the structure of society. Because like you see these, and that's the whole thing with, because you have the earlier Nimrod, which is directly related to Zoroaster. And this, you're getting into like a purified form of light and looking at higher realms. And then when the younger Nimrod comes in, he almost takes that and inverts it. And that's when you start to see the creation of these gods on earth that are basically, and they said that Hippocrates, right, the finger over the lips, that's basically the saying that it's never to be discussed that all of these gods were once men in an earthly form, and that anybody that should talk about it should basically be taken out. So it gets into some, but that's the whole thing, the inversion of this idea of looking, because I think a lot of these early cultures were participating in different herbal, medicinal, fungal type concoctions where they were seeking ecstatic visions and to connect with the higher realms, right? And that when the younger Nimrod came in, and this is the time of the building of the Tower of Babel, right?
Right.
That basically he took that sacred, because the elder Nimrod, he fled. And I found some Persian texts where they talk about Yad Vadhe gave him 4 cities for abandoning Babel. And
he's talking about Ninurta.
Ninurta, oh yeah.
You're son of Enlil.
Enlil,
yeah, dude. I can get deep into the Mesopotamian
stuff,
mythology. Those stories were always fascinating to me when I first started reading them. And now I'm starting to get into the Eddas and the all the Greek stuff and stuff with Headless that we've been doing. Reading a book now called Mysteries of the Druids by William Winwood Reed, or W. Winwood Reed. Do you know who he is? Have you heard of that book?
No.
Something I found looking for another book.
Always. Yeah.
And it's the origins of Albion and Gaul. And so it's very interesting. And
well, now the Druids, right? And I was going to get into this later on, but when you have these orders of these Masons that go back into, when you look into ancient Cana, one of the cult of the fire god, and Zoroaster, they're basically worshiping this fire at the time. They talk about this fire god is basically the earthly fire and the heavenly fire, and they call it Gibil, Gibil.
Right?
Right.
Son of Enki.
So, and they invoke this Gibil into when they're doing alchemy and they're doing metallurgy, and they're basically transforming these metals or purifying these metals for the purpose of making weapons or making, the Scythians, they were making all kinds of, wares as far as pans and pots and jewelry. And the Scythians, I just read somewhere that they were the money keepers and the metalsmiths for one
Yeah.
society somewhere in Greece.
Yeah, dude, I've
And-
seen some artwork or some kind of depictions of the Thracian and the Phrygian warriors.
Yep.
Super sick fucking outfits, man.
Oh yeah,
Like me and Headless are gonna get Phrygian caps and wear them.
yeah. I've been looking for a good Phrygian cap for a while, man.
Yeah, gotta find one.
Yeah.
Let me know if you find one.
Oh, for sure. I found them, but they're flimsy. I want like an
I want a
actual
solid
felt
one. Yeah.
one, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it just is so this whole ancient society of these alchemists and metal workers, you know, they're wearing the goatskin bibs that become the Masonic aprons.
What?
Oh yeah, and it goes all the way back into
Why the goat? Because I know the goat can represent the phallus, obviously.
Right. Well, it was the age of the ram. So
okay.
the age varies, you know. So everything is based around this goat. But nonetheless, they at 14 years old, and if you read where is this at? In Gibbon in the Decline and Fall of Rome, he goes into a whole little paragraph about the Zoroastrian aprons that they would give to them when they were 14 years old. And it was basically like your modesty, and it was like your trust in your word in society. And if you did anything wrong, they would take your apron away, you know. And these were all these early blacksmiths, and you know, coming out of the cult of the blacksmith, and you know, the ancient fire worshipers. And then so that gibbo or that fire entity that they're worshiping, when you come down into Biblos, right, which is what was it? The Greeks called it Biblos, but they called it in Syria there, they called it Gibelum was the name of the town, right? And they talk about Gibelum in the Bible, and they also talk about Biblos, you know. And this is where we get our first book, the idea of the first book from Biblos, and this is why they call the Bible, you know, the Bible coming from Biblos. And this was where they had a cult of Aphrodite and Adonis, and all of these Giblamites that were in the city, they went to the temple of Aphrodite and Adonis. And these Giblamites are the ones that the king of Tyre, King Hiram, he calls these Giblam up, or these Giblamites, you know, and he sends them into Jerusalem to basically build Solomon's temple.
I was gonna say, King Hiram.
So now you have, this is one line of these builders in stone, right? And these go all the way, and then on the other side, within the Judaistic side, you have within the line of Ham settling into the land of Cush. They were the Cushites, and they are said to be responsible for all the old, you know, colossal stone structures of giant edifices, you know.
And were they based in Africa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Africa and Iran.
So there's
through that belt.
In this book I'm reading, apparently, it may have been Hall that had said it, but Stonehenge was transferred from Northern Africa to Salisbury by Merlin.
Yeah.
By way of magic, or you know, maybe they you know, teleported them there. I don't know.
Right. I've heard somebody say that too, that they teleported them there. But yeah, and it's interesting because with a lot of these cyclopean structures that are associated with the Cushites, you have them like mining and hewing the stone like hundreds and hundreds of miles away from where they take it and set it up, you know. And I think they're working with like the telluric energies of the earth, and they're bringing certain aspect, almost like a sympathetic earth magic, where they're tapping into these, you know, telemic ley lines, and then they're bringing
working
certain
with earth elementals.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think even when you get into the labyrinth of the mysteries, that they were using cymatics to create the structure of the labyrinth in regard to tapping into these otherworldly kind of energies that we can draw forth through sound, vibration,
Dude.
frequency. You
Yeah,
know what I
shout
mean?
out Hans Jennings, man.
Mm,
You know, we've watched his video on cymatics several times on this show to get the point across that
mm.
you know the Earth itself was probably created by
Through
sound.
cymatics. Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
through
Even the
sound.
human body is created through cymatics.
Well, the Aborigines of Australia, they even say that God created the Earth in 3 songs.
Yeah.
3, funny number, right?
Right. The
And
triune.
right, man. So yeah, I don't doubt at all that these ancient people or these ancient beings had the tools or this advanced equipment to create. I mean, apparently that's how the pyramids were built and everything else, you know, in the mythologies. It speaks of Thoth that does all, and he's depicted in a lot of carvings with that pine cone. And I've theorized that pine cone symbolizing a lot of things, the Sephiroth or whatever, as well as the pineal. But maybe it was a tool that they used. I mean, dude, what house do you not go to where like the front gate, you go and you look in the top of the handrail or like 2 pine cones at the, you know what I mean?
Even the Vatican. The Vatican has the pine cone court, and it has 2 peacocks on each side, Luciferic beings, and in the center is a big pine cone going up, and that's at the Vatican. So it's, but now when you get into the Egyptian papyrus, you oftentimes would see when the initiates were guided into the underworld after death to their judgment, where their heart would be weighed against the feather. They were shown with a pine cone on top of their head, right?
Really?
Yeah. And then also, if you trace the pine cone, just kind of going through as a symbol of the regenerative force, after it gets burned, it will open up and it has all the seeds for 100, however many new pine trees to grow
for rebirth.
Right? For rebirth, as a symbol of rebirth. And these are evergreen trees. So again, and you have all these various gods. Sylvanus was the god of the pine tree. You have Osiris, was the tall standing fir. You have Attis, was the what was it? He's related to the myrrh tree. And then you have Adonis. But nonetheless, you have Attis is the pine tree. Adonis is the myrrh tree. So all of these gods are
about the oak
associated
tree?
with trees. So now you're getting into the druids, right?
Right.
And I think what it was regionally, depending on the type of tree that they had, they would use these different types of trees symbolically based on the different regions, but still bringing the same symbolism with them, right? Because when you get into Zardust or Zoroaster, he is said to have created the Order of the Magi, right? And they said that Thoth or Tahuti or Nerg, not Nerg, who was
Ningajita.
Ningazi, there it was the head of the Eastern and the Western Kadash, right? And the Eastern Kadash was the Order of the Magi, and the Western Kadash was the Order of the Druid. And he ruled with like his staff and his goat horn crown, and so it gets into the split because you see at the same time they're worshiping Baal, Molech over here, and then the Druids have their own Baal that they're worshiping. It's just these 2 different streams that have kind of split into different regions. And so with the Druids, they would take and they would fell a sacred tree on it, and this is always generally around the spring equinox. So it's associated with 322, right? In regard to especially the cult of Attis, they went out on 322. That was the date.
Who was Attis?
Attis is he is the Phrygian mystery school within the personification. He's the male personification between the goddess and the supplicant. He's more a supplicant to Mother Kybele or Kybele. All right.
Okay.
So, but now what they would do is they would fell this tree and they would carve out the interior of the tree, right? And they would do this in Syria with Adonis. The cult of Adonis would do this. They would do this in Phrygia with the cult of Attis. They would do this, and they would do this with the Druids. And so they would take this tree and they would hollow it out, and they would take the interior of the tree and carve it into an effigy of the god. And then they would wrap it in linen bandages and then put it back inside the tree and anoint it with oil, right? And when you look at the histories of these practices, the documented aspects of it, the philosophers at the time talk about it, the different like historians of the various cultures, they say that the rites were so closely held with that of Osiris that if you asked most of the participants in these ritual processions, they would say that it was indeed Osiris that they were all worshiping. So this all is branching out from Osiris.
Dude, in the book I'm reading, this Winwood guy says all the he calls the mystery schools of the heathens, or they all stem from Isis and Osiris.
Osiris, right?
Yeah.
And so now you have, if you go back and you read the line of Noah with his children, he had Ham or Chem, which is where we get chem or chemistry or alchemy. Right. That's Noah's eldest son, and then from him we have Cush, who is the father of Nimrod, right? So, and in the histories, they say that Ham, he brought these ancient gods into Egypt and set up Egypt in the worship of these gods. And he's actually cursed by a few historians saying, how dare you take these simple people and indoctrinate them into this ritual practice, right? And it was Cush is related to Zoroaster, right? And then you have Cush is also related to Nimrod the Elder. So there was two Nimrods: Nimrod the Elder, which was the lesser Nimrod, and Nimrod the Younger, which was the greater Nimrod.
Somebody's asking if the Vatican was built on the hill of Attis.
Attis, yeah, I've read that it was built on the Temple of Kybele, which Kybele's counterpart is Attis. Yes.
Okay.
And
I thought it would have been Sabazios.
Sabazios. I don't know. Yeah.
I know that's right there. It's close. It's all in a very close area.
And when you get in, that's the thing. When you get into these various goddesses, right? They called Isis Moronimus because she is the root. And then like we were talking about how it flares out. So you have all these different goddesses that are really just different incarnations of Isis, which they cover over and over again in various histories and texts, So it's
Ishtar,
Inanna,
Asta.
Yep.
Who was
coming down into Kybele, coming into Aphrodite, coming into Diana, going back to Hecate even, Yeah.
So you mentioned that they put these effigies in the trees, in the oak trees. Would they, and then they would sit under them and they would receive instructions from the gods, right? Or from I guess whatever particular deity they then place in the tree.
Right.
Very interesting, man.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But
These
it's just
ancient
interesting
practices.
that well, and so when you trace that back as far as you can, as far as that God that's in the tree, right? You have this story within that the Freemasons highly value because it's published in numerous of their various texts that they talk about this idea of Osiris basically being killed by Seth or Set or Typhoon, and the first time, he has a box, like it's a jewel encrusted box. Set had measured Osiris's shadow, so he knew exactly how tall he was, right? And at the party, they try to get, this is like Cinderella, trying to slip her on too big, too fat, too thin, and finally, Osiris gets in the box, and they nail down the cover and seal it with lead and send it down the river, and it gets subsumed by a tamarisk tree. And this is the land of, like we were talking about, Byblos, Gibelum, Ghibli, where this king, Bel-Harmon, so we're looking at one god, he goes down the river, and Bel-Harmon is another god. He finds that this casket, it had washed up, and this tamarisk tree, I guess, sensing the energetic, divinity of the god form, it basically subsumed the casket of Osiris, and it grew up tall and straight. And so this Bel-Harmon, he cut it off and used it for a pillar in his temple. And so Isis, she goes out to look for Osiris and comes into this land, and she basically works her way into the household of the king, because she's doing these beautiful braids that they've never seen in the land, and she's blowing her breath on the girls that she's braiding, so they have this really beautiful smell. And the queen is really interested, and so they bring her into the household, and she starts taking care of the children. And one night and they gave the youngest child, the baby, to her to nurse, and it says that she nursed the child with her fingers, right? With her blood, essentially, right? And at night she would put the infant in the fire to burn off all the mortal parts of it, and then she got caught because the mother came in and saw the baby in the fire and flipped out. And so she's like, and so Isis broke down and was like, the reason I'm here is my husband, and it's inside of that tree, right? So they go and they bring the pillar from the palace down, and they cut open the tree, and inside the tree is Osiris's body, wrapped in linen bandages, and or maybe she wrapped it in linen bandages and then anointed it with oil. So then you see this mystery cult of these Giblamites going into, because with Egypt you have all these colossal edifices, these giant structures that so you have, again, back to this Cushite line of these builders, and then you have the other side that is related to the Hamites that come down and become the Phoenicians in relation to the king of Tyre. But nonetheless, that Cushite line are the ones that end up building the Tower of Babel. And so you have, and then they say that Masonry was basically dissolved or dissoluted, and that it wasn't until they brought the Cushite line of the Judaic builders in combination with the king of Tyre and that line, and brought the builders back together to build Solomon's temple. So that gets and that gets into the myth of Hiram Abiff and the killing of the king that the Masons emulate,
which people could say is symbolic, because there's reference to Hiram, or Hiram, I guess you could say it like that, as a deity,
right?
In
as an ascended sort of God-man,
right?
kind of
yeah.
He's resurrected in the sense that what was it, the first, because you have the three orders of the Blue Lodge, and the first
and
Of
then
the York
Scottish.
Lodge, right? Right.
Yeah.
Well, the Scottish, it comes later,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, and there's
So
a lot
tell
of
so
selling of degrees, you
so
know.
so sorry for interrupting, Robbie.
No, no, no.
You obviously know more than me. What you said the Blue Lodge, and then what else?
The Red Lodge.
Real okay, and then
So that's the Scottish
what
Rite,
was the third
33
one?
degree. Oh, the
Okay,
third one.
yeah,
Now, well, but so if you get into the York Lodge,
right. Okay, all right.
when Masonry split between the English and the French Masonry, there were and the French Masonry went way esoteric, and I've even seen some of the orders had like 364 degrees, but that the French were the ones that specifically set up the Order of Mizraim, which was a kind of a tap-in society for certain people to enter into the Bavarian Illuminati, you know. So the Illuminati is
Which was pretty
directly
easy to
linked in.
access back then, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, when you get into Adam Weishaupt and all the Spartacus writings, and kind of how that came to light with one of the messengers getting struck by lightning, and it all seems, you know, very theatrical, you know. And I think also the Jacques de Molay on Friday the 13th is also a more modern, recent creation of certain societies, because if you go back into the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, if you go into the Red Book of Masonry that talks about the wars between the Jesuits and the Masons in South America and how the Jesuits were torturing the Masons, both of those books have dates listed in them in regard to Jacques de Molay getting captured and tortured and burned. But none of those dates are the modern idea of Friday the 13th. It's just not associated with it in the deeper histories. So,
Dude, so what's the Red Lodge?
so yeah,
never
now
heard of
the
that.
Red Lodge, you have so now the Blue Lodge, and some of the old Blue Lodge constitutions actually go back into Scotland, and they're intricately tied with one another. But the Blue Lodge is more the British, kind of keeping those ancient Egyptian secrets that have been underground for years and years. And they're kind of reintroducing again this mystery school of this character that's inside the tree, you know, that is dead and reborn, the myth that the Freemasons
It's
use
the same
in
with
regard to
Odin.
Osiris, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Odin as
man.
well, you know. And it all comes down to the carrying over of these ancient mystery schools into a modern day mystery school, you know, and the Catholic Church as well. You know, when you go to a Catholic church, they tell you when they're opening the service, you know, that these are the mysteries of our Savior Jesus Christ, you know. So again, this is another mystery school. And you know, initially I think that again we talked about that inversion, right? When the Nimrod the Younger kind of inverted all the practices and kind of created all these god men on earth that ended up being, you know, the various heads of the mystery schools that we see. As things progressed, I think just due to the nature of humankind, that these ideas have again been inverted more into a positive idea in regard to raising oneself into higher mental forms, higher understandings, higher understanding of love and empathy. And, you know, so I think that, you know, it's like a waveform. Everything's a waveform, frequency, you know, it has its time up, it has its time down. Just like the Kali Yuga, you know.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, guys, we're almost at the top of the hour. Be sure to like the stream and share it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. And I wanted to say, yeah, Jason, you got your sticker pack. That's awesome, brother. I sent some more out. Shout out to the new Patreon subscribers. We got a few new ones this week. Paul, and then Robert. It's good to see you back, Robert. Lucia and Nephilim Hunter. I think he joined, and then someone tried to join, and it said their card did not. I don't know. So thank you. I will be sending your guys sticker packs ASAP. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Robbie. Just wanted to
No, it's all good.
do a little housekeeping.
Plug and play.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, dude. Yeah, it's funny. You know, I think this stuff you really have to get into learning about the mysteries to understand a lot of this, because when you look into just the mainstream, occult conspiracy on this stuff, it's all satanic. You know.
Yeah.
It's all when there is a deeper meaning to a lot of this esoteric knowledge, a lot of it that we live through daily and we don't even know it. You know, most people don't know how to, kind of see when stuff like that plays out. But tell me about, a little bit about when you first started to wake up and you started to, because, it's your first time on the show. So, we could talk about a lot of different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, I want to say I was probably 14 years old, and I got a hold of a copy of Carlos Castaneda and the Conversations with Don Juan, and I just gobbled that up. And then I went and I read all of Carlos Castaneda's work, and I started getting into a lot of Buddhism and Hinduism and a lot of the different pantheons. And I kind of wove my way through a lot of Eastern esoterica, and then kind of wove my way back into Western esoterica, which led me back to the East again.
Yeah.
It's so it's been a journey. I'm what is so if I was 14 then and I'm 54 now, that's 40 years of kind of looking at this information and kind of falling into, I just, the number of rabbit holes is it's like you said, when they limit the information in regard to what people can have access to as far as freedom of ideas, it's like you're given teeth, but you're not allowed to chew steak. I mean, that's the purpose of, coming into incarnation and kind of playing in what this reality has to offer. And, when you get into Platonism and they talk about, is everything just good or bad?
Yep.
And is good really good? And is bad really bad? Because
if the Neoplatonists and all that.
Yeah. Because if we judge everything solely by our sensory experience, it's great to eat cake, but if you just continue to eat cake, you're going to kill yourself. It's great to smoke, this or that. But if you do, it's like even drinking too much water is going to kill you, So you kind of have to, that's the whole idea of the mysteries, is kind of knowing thyself, knowing who you are and knowing what the world is.
Right.
And kind of, and participating accordingly,
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I mean, the whole idea of the head initiate or the priest to learn the mysteries was to go into the underworld,
right,
and navigate through it, learn the signs and symbols, come back, and then teach his fellow initiates these same signs and symbols so they could learn how to navigate.
Right, and you see consistently, if you look at now in Egypt, they had the higher and the lower mysteries. So there we have two forms of initiation, right? But the higher mysteries, so the lower mysteries were the mysteries of Isis, and everyone was allowed to participate except for a swine herder, except for the pig herder, and the Egyptians, they abhorred the pig. And what was it? Eudoxus, I think it was. He was in Egypt for something like 16 months, and he discussed this whole thing with the pigs. And I guess the Egyptians, they kept the pig because of the utility in the fields. because after the Nile would flood, they would spread the seeds, generally with winnowing fans and ashes of sacrificial victims. And then they would set the pigs loose out onto the fields to like trod the seed down into the ground, so it would grow. But there was one day a year that they would take a pig and roast it and partake of it like the flesh of the god. And it was on a full moon. It had to do with lunar energies. And that was the only, and then you have the higher mysteries of Osiris, which this falls into.
Those are the ones that I've kind of
Yeah.
read about and explored, and
Yeah, but the higher mysteries, only the high priests and the pharaoh himself were allowed to enter into these mysteries. That's how high they were. They were for the, only the eye at the top of the pyramid per se, And but then when you get into the mysteries of Adonis, there was 3 levels. When you get into the Phrygian mysteries, there was 3 levels. When you get into the what was it? The Eleusinian mysteries in Athens, there was 3 levels of initiation, so, and you see that carried over, like we said, into the York Lodge, with the 3 levels of the Blue Lodge. So, and that gets into the triune force and the Trinity and a lot of the mystical aspects of the number 3. And
what do you think is the main goal behind a lot of these secret societies? Because I mean, we know what's pushed, and we know, or I mean, some of us know that there are certain rites and rituals that you can perform here on the physical plane that then have effect elsewhere.
Yep.
In the spiritual world, and then also affect the physical plane. Again, you know what I mean? Like it's all just a transfer of energy.
And I wonder, when you look at like Catholicism, which means universalism, because they essentially absorbed all of those various practices from all, and kind of coded them in the idea of Christianity. It almost becomes perennial in a certain kind of a function, with Catholicism. But as far as, what are they to teach you when you get into the modern Masonic orders and you read the speculative Masonry? They talk about, and again, it's this idea of the Gibble, right? And if you read, the Gibbles were the stone squarers. They were, and metaphorically, physically, you take a stone and you square it, and you use that compass and that square until you get it turned into, and you look at, if the South American, Mayan, and Peruvian, some of that stuff wasn't poured as like a concrete, if those were masons, like the Cushites that were actually able to get those angles, so even like in Egypt, getting these angles so tight that you can't even get a razor blade into some of these seams, of these ancient builders. But these Giblemites, they were the ones that would square the stones perfectly. And so that's the physical masonry, right? That gets into the guilds and the different, the Roman, what's it called? The earliest of corporations, but when you look at it metaphorically, it's the idea of taking the individual and getting rid of the parts that aren't needed, bringing yourself into form with yourself. They have standing on the square. There's different, when they put their arms up in distress, there's a square there. So the square comes into frequent use but those Giblemites of the Freemasons, the modern day Freemasons, according to A.G. Mackey, are said to be the ones that squared the stones for Solomon's temple. So this is what they're tying it in with this ancient Hebrew religious function of, melding the man into a shapen, form that is better than the average man. But with that comes, giving back, tithing to society to make society better for the greater good, kind of getting into these ideas of altruism and kind of building a better society as a whole, but I think, when you have the split between the French and the English and the offshoot into the Illuminati, and then you have the Red Lodge, which is the 33-degree system, that, at certain points within these expanded forms of the schools of the modern day mystery school, being Freemasonry, that I think you're looking at a lot of governmental intelligence kind of tie-ins, when you like Skull and Bones,
I was
tapping
gonna say,
in.
they basically hijacked everything, right?
Yeah. And they find the people that will potentially go along. Excuse me. There was in the Order of Mizraim, in order to get into the Illuminati, at one point, they would have one of your brother Masons come in, and they would give you a dagger, and they would blindfold you and tell you to kill him. And you had to blindly kill him in order to progress to the next level. And when the blindfold was removed, you had actually killed a sheep. So, but this was a level at which they would challenge your sensibility as to whether or not you were going to be true to the group. So, and I think
the faith.
Yeah. And becoming a true, even within the orders of who was it, Mithras, within the Roman cults, they had 3 degrees that they would run you through, and it was a baptism of water, a baptism of fire, and a baptism of light that they would accelerate. And the thing was, with these mystery schools, on the initial first degree, right, they would teach you the vernacular. They would teach you the symbols and the different stories that are associated with these characters and these ideas. And then when you went into the second degree, then they would say, then they would explain the esoteric function of these things to give them a broader, wider understanding, and what is it? They say there's really no true 33rd degree of Freemasonry, but there's also rumors of, what was it, President Roosevelt becoming a 33-degree Mason. There's rumors of Aleister Crowley in South America and Argentina, becoming a 33-degree Mason.
Manly P. Hall.
But Manly P. Hall was never a Mason.
Right. He was a Rosicrucian.
He was a Rosicrucian, Luciferian,
but he reveres Christ, dude. Like, he refers to Christ as his Lord and Savior. And people don't know that. Christians don't know that. They think Hall's some Satanist, and it's no, he just it was normal to question things. There's a this fear paradigm that's being pushed, and it's pushed through religion. The dogma of religion, unfortunately,
and that's why you kind of have to look at all this stuff more philosophical, and you have to kind of say these things could be true, but we also have to question whether or not any of it's true. So because
look at who wrote everything,
right, and it's beautiful symbolism, it's beautiful stories.
Absolutely.
I mean, what is the greatest story ever told is what they call the Bible. It's just because it's epic. It's like Tolkien kind of work, when you get into it. It's
absolutely, dude. But we know how any of our beliefs can be weaponized against us. I just think it's been done so people won't question really anything further than the narrative or what is being fed to them. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of sad to see.
Yeah, it is.
Some people just turn a blind eye to certain things because it makes them uncomfortable, but that's like part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
To be uncomfortable, and it's, I mean,
Well,
not all the time,
but
that's
if
not, I'm not trying to be that guy.
for sure.
But
But if you walk this path of knowledge and knowing and wanting to understand truth of what reality is, you go through the process of dissolution, and you all your beliefs, everything's questioned. You shed away these ideas. You come to a truer understanding of what you think reality is through the course of this. And what did Philip K. Dick say? He said, reality is what persists.
you shed
So
this etheric shell in
yeah,
a way
yeah,
that you cast off of you, and you're reborn almost.
yeah,
And this is going to sound weird, but after like drug withdrawal for
yeah.
like a few days, it's almost, if you're a spiritual person, then you'll face demons, definitely
Demons. Oh yeah, yeah.
going through something like that.
I mean, and that's the
Both
other,
mental.
from the shamanistic standpoint, going back to the Scythians, they had red hashish and they had black hashish. One was cannabis and one was opiates. You get into, just all of these different cultures using ecstatic experiences to have revelatory, to be able to try to touch the divine, to peer beyond the veil, and you see that all through history. And then you get into the modern era, and these things are taken away, they're demonized, they're turned into taboos, and in some ways maybe rightfully, because if you go back into the histories, you were initiated, you were brought through these things to certain understandings, and given the ways that you were going to experience or see these things, and now it's just an overall free for all, back to the Platonic idea of is it good just because it brings you pleasure, I mean, because
and you have people that take aspects from all these different mystery schools or whatever,
right,
and then it's like, okay, well, this doesn't, you contradict yourself with this, but this and this, doesn't coincide with this. I don't know.
there are a lot of contradictions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've told people, I'm like, hey, go and read this stuff for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, our opinions or the way we interpret it, that's coming from us.
Yeah.
So I mean, unless you go and you do your own research, or on your own path, your own journey or whatever, I mean, I think you won't experience it.
And I think that, I remember, like when I found Carlos Castaneda, I was fascinated with the whole subject matter, and I went through all of that stuff. And then, later you find out he's associated with the Esalen Institute and what that's all about in regard to, just ties with governmental forces. And, same thing.
The what
with
institute?
The Esalen Institute. It's Jack Kerouac. He was out in Big Sur, and basically he was all into all this Eastern theology, and this is kind of the area where Jack Kerouac was writing some of his most prolific works. And so they set up this Esalen Institute, and this is where you see Jose Arguella coming out of, that was given a lot of the 2012 stuff that was going on. This is where you see Terrence McKenna is tied in with this. And, people go back and forth on debates with how much, they're tied in with different, government entities and psyops. And, but I think, most importantly, is that when you encounter these different types of ideas and these different types of alternative thinking and perceptual states and understandings, that, as you go through these things, they're expanding your mind into the possibilities of what could be. And as you grow older, that's the idea of gaining wisdom, is you can kind of hash these things out in regard to truism, and you're going to find as you grow older, a lot of things that you believe for years end up being false.
Oh, dude, I know. Trust me. And I'm not old at all, so I know, but I know to expect that my paradigm will be shifted.
Oh yeah,
in many ways, along the road. But at least I can accept that. When it happens, we'll see how well I handle it. But
yeah.
But talking about this stuff and learning about it, I mean, it does help develop. When you do finally kind of, I don't want to say ascend, but when you achieve a higher sort of consciousness, right? You're prepared in a way, kind of like preparing for war or something.
Yeah.
Mentally.
So in Egypt, Set originally, he had the ladder of Set that's very much like Jacob's ladder, that you would have to have these passwords to ascend through the different levels into the heavens. Very Kabbalistic in regard to like the tree of life, moving into the heavens and being interrelated with the planets and et cetera, et cetera. But it was part of the essence of the mysteries that they were teaching you these secrets for ascending into the next realm, into the next life. You would learn the passwords and the signs and the symbols that were required to get through these various gates to be able to ascend into higher realms. And if you knew all these ways to do this, then you could ascend all the way back to that original. It's almost like nirvana, going back into the oneness of the whole. But if you didn't know all
back
these,
up the tree.
Yeah, exactly. But if you didn't know all these passwords and these signs and symbols, then you would get stuck at different gates, and you could that's until you had another chance, to ascend. That's kind of where you would subside within your next existence state.
And I think there's people that want to control that ascension, dude.
Oh yeah,
they definitely want to gatekeep it, like kind of what you said earlier. I say no. I say we're not gonna let them do it, and that's why I tell people, I'm like, hey man, you can go subscribe to my Patreon, and you don't have to go get in some coffin and jerk off or some
have a red ribbon tied around your phallus.
Yeah. Whoa, wait, red ribbons.
That's the Skull and Bones.
Oh, really? I was gonna say, that's where I've heard about the weird. They have some pretty weird rites. I mean, look at the people that have come out of it.
Well, but that's the other thing when you get into all this. Yeah, when you get into all these different early, cults of the mystery schools, it's consistent that the phallus was removed. And Osiris. It becomes that obelisk, that Isis basically does this ritual to resurrect or pull the seed of Osiris up out of the earth. And then she resurrects, Horus, and brings forth the reborn God form,
with the phallus of Osiris.
That she constructs.
No, what's up? I was going to.
So she basically constructed this obelisk. Some of the texts say out of like mud and clay, and one of the texts said she made it out of solid gold. But she wrapped, Osiris's body in bandages. This is where we get the first mummy. This is where Mary Shelley reassembling those parts of Osiris. This is where Mary Shelley got the idea for the modern Prometheus being Frankenstein.
That's
because all the body parts.
Frankenstein's green. Like
Osiris.
Pictures of Frankenstein, he's green, dude.
Like Osiris.
There's another green man.
Another green man for sure.
Yeah,
pushing shoots up from the underworld. And what was it in? There's one of the chambers. There's a bas relief carving on one of the walls, and it's Osiris laying in his coffer, and he has stalks of corn growing out of him, and one of the high priests is watering him as the corn is growing out of him. And they say that that's the most secret form of Osiris that's never to be spoken of. You know,
Dude. Yeah, you just blew my mind with the Frankenstein.
yeah, the Frankenstein stuff's good, man.
We stay on a Green Man watch.
Yeah,
This
Oh,
show
yeah.
we've done a couple deep dives, learning about some new stuff. You know,
For sure.
interpreting it from new angles. Like I said, dude, like from when I first started Gray Pilled, the show has you know, it's come a long way, as well as my outlook on a lot of things. You know, my spiritual life, that of my wife as well, dude. Like we're kind of both in the same place spiritually right now. It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, man. But
go ahead.
No. You go ahead, please, Robby.
Well, what I was gonna say is, you know, this phallus that Isis builds, this obelisk, you know, this is the beginning of the Patar stone, or the father stones, that are these tall standing stones. And so now, if we look around the world, you know, in accordance with the spread of Freemasonry, in accordance with the spread of this idea of, you know, the libertine philosophy in regard to overthrowing crown and altar. This is what the Dionysians were doing when they came into Greece. They were overthrowing the kings. They were causing all this havoc, and they were wearing the Phrygian hats, you know. And then you get to the French Revolution, they're wearing the Phrygian hats. You know, you get to the, Che Guevara, he's got his red beret. Anytime you see these red hats through history, you know, these are promoters of revolutionary kind of philosophies, you know, even in Rome, you know, with the freed slave, the hat of the freed slave, you know, because that's the idea, the freed slave. We all want to be
Gray-pilled Phrygian caps.
Yeah.
Top tier subscribers will get them. And yeah, I have to. Yeah, dude. Definitely. I got to do a Phrygian cap episode.
And we want to see, we want to see pictures of people with them in public.
There you go. Yeah. Talk to Nick about doing that. Like, dude, print some occult reject hats.
And then we can all recognize each other, you know.
Yeah, Headless was like, yeah, I don't know, that may look silly. Phrygian
That's okay.
cap. Or maybe it was Arrow saying that. I don't know. I was like, I'll be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Aren't we all the fool though? You know, I mean, in accordance with the fool's journey, you know.
Yeah, sometimes you have to act, sometimes you kind of are the fool, you know, and it's okay.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you act the fool and you shouldn't, but sometimes the archetype fits. Meat Cavern knows what I'm talking about, don't you? No. But oh man, so what I was gonna say, it's your first time on the show. I wanted to start doing this a little bit. So Robby, flat Earth or hollow Earth?
Oh, see,
or are you a simulation kind of guy?
No, I'm a hypercube Earth.
Please explain.
Yeah, so you know, you got this vast argument over whether or not the Earth is round or the Earth is flat, and like we were discussing earlier, you know, whoever has the most people thinking the same thing, that becomes the reality of the situation. You know, we know through physics and the slit experiment that the observer affects the creation of what reality is around us, right? So what I think is that we're in a state of a hypercube, where essentially we're shifting between a flat Earth and a round Earth. And I think we're actually creating space by viewing space. And the deeper we can see into space, the more space we're creating. And kind of, you know, we are the creators within the manifest creation.
Yeah. So does that mean that, I don't know, do we manifest like more land You do that?
Well, I believe that the Earth was actually smaller at one point,
Really?
and and that the atmosphere was more dense, and this is what allowed creatures to exist, being in larger states. You know, when you look at the mammoth and the saber-toothed tigers, and you look at the giant sloths, and even going back in what, some people tell me they don't believe in dinosaurs, but I've been to the places where they're digging them out of the ground on numerous occasions. They
All
used to
right.
call them dragons, and they grind them up and make aphrodisiacs out of them and all kinds of different stuff. But yeah, it's I think it's very amorphous, and how are we ever going to know unless we can actually go into space,
Yeah, no, we don't know if space is fake and gay.
You got to wonder.
You do, man, you do. You can theorize about it, but
Well, and so that gets, when you go back into Zoroastrianism, right? He was the one, Zoroaster or Zardust, he was the one that came up with the idea of the beginning and the end. And he looked at all of the stars in the heavens as entities. Like, this is what they call Sabianism. And every star guarded over something. So like each individual had their own star or angel. This became your guardian angel that guards over you. Each town had its own angel. Each city had its own angel. Like Rome, the angel of Rome was Samael, and he's more a fallen angel. He's the Lord of the air. He was given to lord over the earth after the fall of the Tower of Babel, when Jah or El or Yadhe kind of pulled back, like after the flood of Deucalion, but yeah, it's man, just
interesting. You bring up Samael. I equate that again with Inky, but you saying him being the Lord of the air. I don't know. Maybe somebody else. I don't know. Now I have to go do more research.
Yeah. So now in the Hebrew text, he's called the Lord of the air, and he has 12 wings that draw down as he stands on earth, but is in the heavens at the same time. And these 12 wings are essentially, the zodiac and the turning of the yearly cycle. And it gets into, a lot of the ancient calendars and kind of tying in that way.
Yeah, man. So aliens, fake and gay, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you go back into the histories, we have every culture has these documented intercessions of some sort of a dimensional or higher form being that's coming from the heavens. Potentially, are they inner earth beings that are shapeshifters that were here before us? That, because if you read the Muslim texts, they talk about the idea that the earth was populated with jinn and demons before the human race came, and these entities
they just went to inside the earth. They went down in these caves.
Yeah, and you hear that over and over, when the fairies, they receded into the land. All these
into
entities into the trees, right?
Yeah.
And when they couldn't recede into the land, especially during the flood, they receded into the seas. And that's like you have Jesus when he drives the 7 demons out of Mary Magdalene into the pigs, and then he runs them off a cliff. He's driving the demons into the sea, because they didn't want them to sink into the land, because then they're in direct correspondence with humans, and those entities have just as much sovereignty in this realm as we do, so
absolutely.
Yeah,
people don't know that.
Well, it says it, in numerous places in the old text,
Well, yeah. People will read it, but they still will, discount the supernatural,
right?
That exists all around us.
Right. But yeah, I think aliens, it gets interesting. Like Whitley Strieber talking about how they look like owls, and then you go back into the owl mythology, going back to Anana, and she was related to the owl. And in Persia, they said the owl was the one too many, the animals that was created, because it was created at night and not during the day. And it's like an abomination. And it gets into some interesting stuff.
That's interesting. You bring up the owl with Inanna back to Mesopotamian mythology.
Right.
Her being the sister of Ereshkigal,
Yep.
The aunt of Lalitu, Lilith, and her being like a harpy, right?
Right.
Yeah. So.
And well, now Lilith, when you get into Lilith, there was the whole argument over coitus, as far as she wanted to be on top when they were having sex, and Adam wouldn't let her be on top. And, it's interesting because it says it was in the Garden of Eden. And according to Hebrew theology, mythology, they say that she was Adam's first wife. And because she couldn't dominate and be on top, that she uttered some divine words that she had learned from the Elohim, and had levitated out of the garden and went to the Red Sea, started breeding with Samael, pumping out like 1,000 demons a day. And but a lot of people think she has wings like a harpy because of how she flew out of, or levitated out of, Eden when she left.
Well, she had, I think, when you put it that way, she had these spells or these MEs that it talks about. Well, if you read Sitchin, he refers to them, I guess, from his translation as MEs, which are just these like the tablets of destiny, like these scrolls, or I don't know what kind of
well, the
what they were,
Sumerian,
but it was information
clay
and
tablets.
knowledge. It was these probably cuneiform, or
the library of Ashurbanipal.
Dude, it's pretty. So she probably had knowledge of that from Ishtar,
right?
Stealing it. Man, that whole when you look at them as like a giant family, it's pretty fucked up family.
Oh yeah. Well, so interestingly, there were several bishops and high level religious historians and writers that believe that the land being divided between the children of Noah is the same story as the land being divided between the children of Zeus and the Titans and the Olympians, as far as after the Titans fell, when the land was divided, that they and even the the Sibylline Oracle. There's Sibylline oracles that talk about the fact that Zeus was, and lines them up, as far as the children of Noah with the offspring of the Olympians, that they're the same entities, just told. And if you trace the mythology of Greece and Zeus and all the Olympians back, it actually goes back to in the Etal Mountains, the Kumbari cycle. Have you heard of the Kumbari cycle?
I have not.
Yeah, so Kumbari, he's like this character that they're trying to overthrow him and take his progenitor aspects of his rulership, and they basically bite off his genitals. And so this is one of the earliest castration kind of cults, and he swallows them, right? And then he tells the one that swallowed him, he's like, I've implanted these 3 gods in your belly, like the typhoon and like all these winds. And he's like, there's no way you'll be able to, but he's the cupbearer, you know, just like Zeus is the cupbearer when he severs the genitals, you know. So yeah, but realistically, the Olympians and Mount Olympus is actually, you can tie it back to a mount in the Atar Mountains, that Hesiod. He talks about that's basically where he got his information from and built the Greek pantheon that he lays out, you know.
And very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, dude, that story you just talked about where the dude has his penis bitten off, it's the same with Anu.
I think it was all the genitals, because there's three. So we're talking the triune that so it's the member and the two.
Yeah, and it's same thing that happens to Anu.
Yep.
Alelu, his well, it's the prior king, but it's the father of Enki's wife,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like this exiled king, and they're on Earth, and he's wrestling. That's like these matches that they used to have, these ancient little wrestling matches where they get naked and they'd wrestle each other, and you see that with the gods as well, you know, along in Rome and Greece, but
especially
but yeah, he bites on his, I'm pretty sure it's his dick and probably his balls. I don't know about the other stuff, but
yeah.
No, yeah, that's funny.
But that ties right in. That ties right in with Saturn, you know, and the castration as far as Zeus castrating, you know. It ties right in with the Osiris castrations,
Right.
following right up to there's Knights Templar in France. The highest levels of the Knights Templar participated in this.
Wait. Hold on. The Templars were castrating themselves?
And the highest level within the French.
Fuck out of here, dude. Guys, you heard it here. You heard it here from Robby. Gay religion? Somebody said all this dick shit is totally related to circumcision.
I know. Well, but that's the thing. You take that you know, severed member, and they set that up and started worshiping it, you know. And in the festivals, they would carry around these giant phalluses that kind of look like mushrooms, you know. And several of these cults have been, you know, documented as using different funguses, you know. But we see that phallus, that you know, obelisk. We see it in Washington, D.C. We see one in front of the Vatican in St. Peter's Square. We see one in
dude, there's one off the interstate.
Yeah.
Right over here in my county, bro. There's a giant water tower.
And it's an
obelisk. I'm like,
there's one going through Brattleboro, Vermont. That's one of the biggest obelisks in the country, next to the Washington Monument.
They're probably in every state. You just pass through, you see these obelisks, and it's just the rulers of this country. You know, giving worship to their, I mean, to their many, because, you know, like you said, you see this story replayed throughout all these different mystery schools with the phallus. So it's like people think that they're worshiping like one, you could call it a Satan, right? An adversary to the creator, or, you know, just an entity that someone chooses to worship. But yeah, man, that's wild about the Templars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But anyway, we're almost at 2 hours. I'd asked you, I asked you something in the private chat. I didn't know how long you could have gone, but I don't know if you saw it or not.
No, I didn't. I haven't even looked.
It's okay. We just kept going, and that's fine. I'm really not. I mean, it's getting late, but I don't really.
For sure.
You know, I don't really care. We keep talking. I'd love to have you back on to talk about some more stuff, and to talk about this stuff further. Maybe get into some of these mystery schools. You know, by
specifics.
By
region.
By each one. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Love to do that with you.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, I had one more question for you. I had a few questions, but I'm going to narrow it down to one. I guess that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, no, I was going to ask, what deity do you think is being venerated at the very top? What mystery school is running shit?
Yeah, I mean, when you get into
Just
the old
your opinion.
Zoroastrianism, the oldest, when the oldest documented form we have is Zoroastrianism. And he talks about the truth from the lie. He's focusing on, the reality and discernment and higher forms of being. He's associated with Nimrod the elder who flees. Nimrod the younger inverts it and turns it into this blood cult, where they're sacrificing children and they're drinking blood. And then you see it inverted again. It's even questionable when you look at some of the Vatican imagery. But I would like to think the idea of Christ is, more a high form that's maybe been bastardized again. That's the thing. Once the state gets in control of these things, like in Rome, it was part of the state religion to participate in the mysteries. So that was something that everybody did. And then you have specifically the cult of Mithras, which was for the Roman soldiery, and you see, that's another thing. You see these mysteries spreading with the militaries and with the merchants specifically. Right?
We had somebody on the Occult Rejects talking about Mithras, and he was saying how the Venetian black nobility families each had their own personalized Mithras deity. And I'm like, wait, so there's a giant army of Mithraic tulpas
even
out
now
there in the ether.
About Bloomberg? Are you familiar with Bloomberg? And he rebuilt that temple of Mithras and then built an office building on top of it, because the temples of Mithras are underground, right?
Right. You go in the cave, and then you come out
and,
reborn.
So now if you go back as far as you go back, and I actually have a 3-part series on Mitra, the ancient Indian deity, right, within the Aryan philosophy, to Mithra, which is associated more with Greek, to Mithras, which becomes the Roman deity. And, through the scope of that, and I lay it out within those shows, that once the Romans got a hold of it, they tie back to the inverted form, and they start to worship the bull, which relates to Nimrod, and which also relates to Lucifer and relates to all the Shaitan, this dark force, right?
Yeah.
So by the end, when the Romans are worshiping Mithras, they had inverted it into a Luciferian philosophy, so it was a way to, worship this Luciferic force.
Especially in the hands of these dark families, these dark bloodlines.
Sadists.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing, with the Masons, when you look at them now, they're ideally shaping people to a better form of themselves. When you look at Christianity, they're shaping people into a better form of themselves. And it's the idea of refining the self, knowing the self, and the circumcision of the heart, that Aleister Crowley talks about in his 777, So.
Wow. He does talk about, dude, that's wow, man. I'm pretty sure they've been covering that on Occult Rejects as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, so I guess we can sum it up to I don't know.
Well, I think it's for a good. There is an outward good force, but just like with anything, there is an underbelly.
Well, you have your right hand and left hand,
and
path,
left
right?
hand, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
man. So yeah. So we're just gonna say that they're worshiping Addis or something.
They are worshiping some form of Addis or Osiris or Adonis.
I heard you go deep on Adonis, dude.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Don't, guys. Please don't clip that.
Ha!
All right. That sounded
And I was right in there too.
But yeah, no, I heard. I think Nick told me that you've broken him down as far as who he is, and so, like I said, man, would love to have you back on the show. Would love to have you on a day that I don't work 10.5 to 11
let me
hours.
know what's better for you. We can figure it out.
However, if you book on a weekday, I will be there, and I will be, present. And guys, I've been doing a lot better on my weekday shows. Maybe it just comes in time with podcasting, but I'm not fucking dude. Like 6 months ago, doing this, man. You know what? It was the heat. It had to have been the heat. Had to have been. I live in Mississippi, so
yeah,
very hot.
So what's the temperature down there now?
Oh, dude, it's right now it's 30. I think it may be 30.
Yeah.
But it was raining all day today and just miserable. But that means that it will be very beautiful out soon, right?
Yeah,
It'll be nice out soon.
Yeah. So we just got
hopefully around Christmas.
Yeah, we just got 13 inches of snow here.
No shit, dude.
Yeah, and it's just gonna it's cold now. It's just gonna keep piling up. I mean, there's been years we've had like 8 feet of standing snow here. I fell one time and got caught in a snowbank and had to get my wife to come get me out.
I have to ask this question. Do you play Santa at the Santa?
My wife keeps saying I need to start doing the Santa thing, but I got a few more years before it's all white, man. So I'm holding out. Brother. So
well, guys, y'all can catch Robby on the Occult Rejects with me, Nick, Headless, Ethan, whole bunch of us on there. We would like to see him more then he can probably join us, but when he does, it's always a blessing. And I appreciate you coming on tonight, man.
Yeah, man.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
If anybody wants to check out my various artworks, any of my social media, I have a Patreon. I also have the Metta Mindcast that we talked about.
I'll put the link tree in the description.
Yeah, and that's the easiest way is just the link tree. You can go to Linktree RMARX, and that'll give you all the possible ways to connect with what I'm working on.
Right on, brother. Yeah, y'all go subscribe to Robby's channel and go to his website. Check out his art. If you've gone to any festival, you'll probably recognize his handiwork. So he's a great artist, and I love that each podcaster that I meet or someone that has a show, they have something else that they do. Like I'm a drummer. I've been a musician my whole life. So
nice. It's always good to have a way to express yourself, to get energy out, to be creative work with that creative energy.
I think that's what brings us to podcasting. Like as far as like the type, because I don't want to say just podcast because you got people with shit podcasts. Okay. I know mine's not, the best.
I enjoy it.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
But there's some people out there. It's just like, why did you even think about doing this? This was a terrible idea. And it's usually the people who were like well-established celebrities or like someone. Yeah, it's like, fuck off, man. Go do your own. Like you have money. Like fuck off. And no one cares about your opinion. Well, I don't. But
but that's the question. Me being an artist, in regard to the liberal arts in general, into music and acting, and it's like. Should artists have opinions? I mean, are we just there to, supplicate the machine?
I guess it depends on the topic of opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's funny because, like, what was it? Henry Rollins back in the day. If you go
He's
see
such
one
a
of his
dick.
shows,
I
he would
love
just,
him. I love
oh
his
yeah,
music. I love him when he sang for Black Flag.
yeah, me too. You
And
know,
he's actually a pretty good actor too.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
he is a dick.
but he'll just grind and talk about political stuff for like 2 hours during the show as part of the music, you know. Michael Fronte, you know, he had a whole little exhibition he was doing before the shows, and I guess the feds ended up going and telling him he needed to shut that down. You know, I've heard some weird different stories about, you know, and what Sid Vicious, you know, with the Sex Pistols, he was talking about Jimmy Savile like way back in the 70s, you know.
On the
So
news, right?
yeah, on the news, you know.
I've seen that. Him and Johnny Rotten.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Johnny Rotten I'm
Or
thinking of.
yeah.
Maybe it was Johnny Rotten I'm thinking of. But yeah, I mean,
No,
so you know,
Sid was in the interview. It was Johnny was saying
yeah,
something.
yeah,
And Sid was kind of weighing in, but
yeah,
I don't. He was probably high.
yeah.
So
But artists consistently, you know, we're like the Hyokas kind of the society, you know. We do things in different ways. We express ourselves, and you know, and we hope to challenge the minds, you know, that come across the things that we're manufacturing out of, you know, the void.
yeah, JC. It's white magic.
White magic.
Well,
Oh,
guys,
I was gonna say in Mayan astrology, when I trace my birthday back, I'm a double white wizard. Everything I touch doubles in power. So
oh yeah, dude. No, I was gonna say that's actually perfect for you. You can definitely be the white wizard. You should have your own cloak and let the beard grow, dude.
and a Phrygian cap.
You can be the Merlin when I take back King Arthur's castle.
Yeah.
And we reinstall the Orders of the Quest. But
yeah.
But we're not castrating ourselves, guys. We're not castrating ourselves. We're not doing any of that. It's enough phallic talk for tonight. I know, everyone's all
it's just crazy in history, man. That's just everywhere.
It is, dude. No,
know?
it's funny because Nick, he would say, he's like, you know, not everything's dicks and demons, and I'm like, I agree, but
I don't
it's
know.
dicks a lot. It's dicks a lot, you know.
Yeah.
It's demons some, but it's dicks a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, guys, go follow me on Twitter, X, whatever, at Grayfield Pod, Instagram, Grayfield_podcast, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. If you want to support the show, go over to patreon.com/Grayfield Podcast. Got a lot of tiers over there. You get links to group chats in the Discord. You get free sticker pack. You get early Elohim etymology releases. Starting those back up soon. I know I've been saying that for about a month and a half now. But I'm gonna be forced to do them soon, right? I got to give y'all content on Patreon. Y'all pay for it. You get Esoteric Book Review, by the way, this Saturday. Esoteric Book Review, me, Subliminal Messenger, Season of the Rat. Nick will be there. Well, Nick won't be there. Him and Headless are doing their thing, so it'll just be us three. We are reading, I think, from Secret Teachings of All Ages, because we can't find the PDF for the occult symbolism of animals, but it's on the fish and the birds, I think. So it's going to be a good time. And it's the last EBR for Subby for about 2 or 3 weeks, because he'll be spending time with the family during the holidays. So it'll be me and Rat for a few weeks, and we'll maybe get some guests on. Robby, I'd hit you up about that sometime if you're ever up on a Saturday morning and you want to come to an esoteric book review, dude, and read some
Saturdays
read a bit of a treatise or something. I don't know, man, if you're ever free. I know some people are mostly busy on the weekends. Mostly everyone I know that has a show or is podcast adjacent, they do it during the week. And unfortunately, my schedule is the total opposite.
Totally.
It's the opposite.
And most of the stuff I do during the week in the daytime, but I do afford, after 9, 10 o'clock at night that I can open myself up. So I should be working on this watercolor piece. So,
Yeah, dude. I want to see that when it's done. I'm putting in the comments right here because they want me to raid my buddy Assbutt, who has a banger piano show. Guys, if you like live music and requesting live music, go over to Assbutt's channel, the original Assbutt. I'm going to copy the link and we're going to Rumble raid him. He is a Patreon supporter and a good friend of mine, one of the co-hosts, or one of the two hosts of Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. We love him over here on Grey Pilled. So go over there and check his show out. And, request a song. I guarantee he'll play it. Request Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, and he will cuss you out because he can't play it. I love you, ass. But anyway, guys, we have Esoteric Book Review Saturday. We may be doing Rustic Gods Sunday. I know I'm having Julia from Cosmic Peach on next week. Maybe Monday. I think next Monday. I'm going on Doc Brown's podcast next Friday. And then I'm going on Bennett from Broadcasting Seeds. Going on his podcast here in the next couple weeks. Don't know if anybody else is scheduled with me yet. I have a few guests lined up. If you're in the Grey Pill chats, in the group chats, you should probably know. But yeah, we got some stuff that we're working on. So, look forward to a Rustic Gods episode, hopefully, and an Esoteric Book Review this weekend. And maybe we'll watch Holy Mountain if no one else books with me, or if me and Miss Babylon, my wife, Robby, if she kind of started her thing. She doesn't have nearly as much time as me because she's a mom too. And I literally, dude, all the stuff I do for the podcast, I do and like the odd hours of the night and when everyone else is asleep, so I make time for myself. But yeah, guys, so y'all look forward to that. And I'm sending sticker packs out to the new Patreon subscribers. Thank y'all again for supporting the show. Think if there's anything else. Don't think so. So yeah, I will see you guys this weekend. Everybody have a good Friday tomorrow. And oh yeah. Well, I was going to say, go check out the episodes from this last weekend. I went on the White Rabbit podcast, and we had the Veritas Road on. We had Arrows Up on, Occult Rejects, and I had Tomcat from Strange Brew on. So bunch of stuff we did this last weekend. We streamed, what did we stream? Sexy Beast, great fucking movie. So that's up on the channel.
Yeah, that's a wild one.
Yeah, it's awesome. Love it. But anyway, guys, see y'all this weekend, hopefully. Love you all, and stay Grey-pilled. Later.
Kill me, Lloyd.
You handsome faggot.